Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I am proud to bring you Herculean Physique with Ryan Foley. Greetings and welcome, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I've been looking forward to this conversation for days, so I'm glad that we're finally here.
Good. I am too. Boy, so things are changing rapidly. It's been a really busy month for me. But one of the things that I wanted to go back to before we jump into the main conversations tonight. So last month we were talking about a deload session, and for those who might have missed, deloading is where you go through and you're remaining active, but if you're feeling worn down, then you go through and you scale back your workout intensity. So normally whenever I go through and I'm attempting to build muscle and build strength, the key is to go to failure, or what I say failure -1. And so that can be very taxing on your muscles. And so every once in a while, we want to go through and just to drop the rep range, drop the amount of weight that we're lifting, just to kind of go through the motions. But then at the same time, we're doing a little bit of work in order just to keep the juices flowing. And so, man, last month, whenever I talked to you, I was really close to crashing out, as the kids would say. You can use that in the hip slang term that the kids use. But so I needed a little bit of a break, and so I discovered this deload session. So I went through and took a little bit of time off to relax. And so after that week, then it was time to get back into it. And so that was still really fresh whenever we were talking last month. But I kind of wanted to go through and give people just a little bit of an update now that I've got a little bit more data to go through and determine how well this deload session worked. And I really think this is something that I need to go through and implement. So it's 1 week for every 2 months. 2 months, maybe three, depending upon the types of exercises I'm doing. But by going through and doing that, I felt like my system was able to go through a little bit of a reset. Which, so to me, it was the idea of taking one step backwards in order to take a running leap forward. But so in going through and doing that, whenever I came off the deload week, I had a lot more energy. I was raring to go, and so as a result, I was lifting heavier again. So it's back. It's lifting heavy weights, and so the only really drawback, the only caveat to it is that I started to develop a lot of delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS, as it's sometimes called, just because you're taxing your muscles in a different way. DOMS is something that isn't really something to be afraid of. It's good. It shows that you're going through and you're making progress and you're taxing those muscles in a different way. But I've always said you never want to be so sore that it compromises your exercise for the next day, because I am in the gym 7 days a week. It's the only way that I can do it and maintain a caloric deficit. And it's very therapeutic for me to be in the gym. So that's the only thing, is that you have to be very intentional whenever you come back to define how you're going to split your workouts up, how you're going to do your, which muscles you're going to specifically target, because you're going to want to do a lot of active recovery in order to get through that soreness. But so 10 out of 10 would recommend, if you're going through and you need to do a little bit of a reset, the deload week might be a really good idea for you to try.
I experimented with it myself as well, so I have a progress report to give after you finish giving yours.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead, jump in.
Oh, I tried a version of what you were talking about. I went back to lighter weights. So what I did was I put 2.5 pound wrist weights on my wrists, and then I used 5 pound kettlebells and 8 pound dumbbells. So first I did the exercises to warm up with just hand grips to provide some extra tension. So I warmed up the areas I'd be exercising, and then I did a total of 12 sets with the weights, or more or less. But I hit 12 at least, and some of them I got as high as 14. And I went up to 8.9 pound kettlebells. And that was enough to actually give me a burn for a lot of the exercises that I was doing. And then I stretched afterwards, which I don't do often enough, but I stretched afterwards. and it was working out really well. I could see swelling in my arms and my shoulders, and wherever I looked for like definition, it was slight, but it was definitely an improvement. And then what happened was, I guess I got the DOMS. I became like phenomenally fatigued, so I took 2 days off from exercising, and then I felt better today. So today I did like a warming up thing, just exercises on the top part of my body with just hand weights, but a lot of reps and sets. And I'm feeling now motivated to jump back in to the weights tomorrow. So I really loved it, and I'm integrating it into my routine, like I've integrated things that you've shared in the past, like doing compound sets and things like that.
Well, good. So I think that's all fantastic, and that is going to dovetail wonderfully into the next thing that I want to talk about. And so before I dive in here, how experienced are you, or do you have any experience in the past with rowing?
Rowing in the past, oh God, so we'd go back to like the 90s, I guess, when I used to go to a gym on a regular basis, and there was a rowing machine, so I used to row. I used to use that during some of my workouts, but that's, I think, the last time I did rowing.
Okay. Well, so uh, as I came off this deload week, so again, we're always looking for something to go through and provide us with a new challenge, something that, maybe a little something that we haven't done before. And so one of the things that I decided to adopt, so there's a lot of debate, and it's going to depend upon your philosophy. And again, all of this is extremely nuanced, where you have to go through it. And the main goal that I've always wanted to do whenever I come on here is to provide a way for people to elevate their gym IQ, so that way they can understand not just what to do, but why to do it. And then it'll be up to them to decide when to pivot, and when they want to change stuff, depending upon what they're attempting to do and what their goals are. So one of the reasons why I wanted to mention this with you is because I know you've had balance issues
Yes.
in the past, and so I'm kind of wondering if rowing is something that would be tremendously effective for you, because and so not to, I let the cat out of the bag. So this is what I'm doing. I've started rowing now, and so there's the debate, and if people go back and forth, again, it's a very nuanced approach. But so the question is, should you go through and should you do your cardio before you lift your weight? Should you lift it after? And so for the longest time, I used cardio as a way for me to warm up. So I do what's called steady state cardio, which is where it's a slower pace, but I'm at a steeper incline. So that way the degree of difficulty is a little bit higher. And so the goal is to go through to get my heart rate going to where I'm at a fat burning mode. Well, so in wanting to go through and change after that deload week that I did, I was like, okay, so let's find something different in order to do. And so that's where I've jumped on rowing. And as I've started doing this, I'm learning a lot more about it. So I'm going through, I'm studying, I'm doing my work. And even if I transition, so if I start the workout off with rowing, I found that it gets my heart rate going. It greases everything up, and I'm ready to go, and a lot faster in a very shorter amount of time. And then even if I jump directly from rowing into cardio, my heart rate is already elevated, so that way my cardio is more efficient. So I started digging into why rowing is so effective. And one of the important things is that it's very easy to do what they call progressive overload. So progressive overload, just very simply, it's where you're going to go through and you're going to constantly go through and increase either the amount of weight that you're doing, the number of reps that you're doing, or the time under tension is going to be a little bit longer. So that way it continues to get harder and harder and harder. So what I started doing with rowing is I set myself for just a standard amount of time, which I'll dovetail into later. But so I said 5 minutes. I'm going to go through and I'm going to do this thing for 5 minutes. And so I just started rowing at a fairly decent pace. And so what I found is that so it elevates my heart rate. It works really well. It's low impact, which is very important for me. I think that's the reason why I don't do a lot of sprinting, or just because my body's not designed for that, or at least, or I should say, it drains my energy far too much to try to go through and sprint. And so I have to figure out that risk reward ratio. Whereas if your fuel tank only has so much energy in it, if I go through and burn a whole lot of that fuel over a very short amount of time, I'm not getting the amount of caloric burn that I would get if I took that same amount of energy and put it into weightlifting. So it's trying to figure out the best way to go through and do this. And so as I started rowing, that was when I started to do the math on it and really started to figure out, okay, so you're going to do this for 5 minutes. And it has these LCD screens, most of them do, or at least the ones up at my gym do. And so it tells you what your the stroke per minute. So it's telling you how many times that you're doing it. And to be at a fairly decent pace where you're not trying to break your neck. So if you're pulling, you can do about 30. So I tend to fluctuate between about 30 and 34 strokes per minute. Well, so I'm doing that for 5 minutes. So let's just keep it low. So if you're doing 5 minutes worth of exercise and you're doing 30 strokes per minute, and oh my goodness, I'm terrible at math. Okay, so 150. So you're doing 150 reps in that 5 minute time. I don't care what you're doing. If you're doing 150 reps of any exercise for every time that you work out, you're going to go through and you're going to start seeing these changes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm experiencing is I'm starting to experience these changes. So as I'm digging into the science and to present to you here tonight, so we talked about compound exercises, we've talked about single joint exercises, and both of them have their advantages and their disadvantages. But so the rowing, so according to the science on the internet, as believable as that is, but according to the science on the internet, it said rowing engages approximately 86% of your body's muscles. So it is very, very close to a full body workout. And so, but as I'm going through and I'm studying this, okay, so let's think about it. So it's a multi-joint exercise because your ankles are moving, your knees are moving, your hips are moving. Then you're doing the rows. So you're going through, you're working out your back. Whenever I start to get fatigued, I'll tend to switch my grip from a pronated grip, which is where you're looking at the tops of your hands, and then I'll switch it to an underhanded grip. And then by going through and doing that, it's a different form of a pull. So I've always said, if you want to build an epic chest, then what you need is a broad back because the two are going to work together with each other.
Right.
So, if you're going through it, so if you want to develop your legs, well, so think about it. You're doing the medical term, I think is called taint to paint, or some people may call it ass to grass, where you're going through and the back of your calves are actually touching your hamstrings. So you're at a full, so you're doing almost a complete squat as you're pushing back and forth. And so again, because it's low impact, and it's a little bit, the weight, it's not like a full squat, but by going through and doing this, what you're developing, so you're going to develop literally, so you've got your calves, your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, your back, your arms, your forearms. It's one of those things it's targeting, again, according to the science that it says here, 86% of your muscles for 150 reps. And so my goal has been to go through with each week to add another 30 seconds onto it. So again, that's the progressive overload. That's where each week I'm trying to up my levels just a little bit, time and time and time again. And if you do this over a long enough period, I don't see how this can't help you.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I'm retaining this information so that when I get to the point where my balance is a little bit better, I've been looking at local gyms. There aren't that many anymore. There used to be a lot of them before COVID. Now there's one that is nearby. So it's my goal to get enough balance to be able to go to a gym so that several times a week I can use the equipment, which I don't have in my house right now.
Boy, that's an exciting. What? So, I mean, are you ready to? Are you excited to go back?
Oh, of course I'm excited to go back. I love gyms and I love gym culture. It's very interesting. I remember when I was in my 30s, I'd go like at night. There was an all-night gym, so I'd go there at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. There's nobody there to work out, and then when I'd go earlier, I'd have to wait for machines, but I would work out. And there was another person in the 30s, and I had a realization. I said, "Hey, you know what?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Remember those old guys at the gym?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember the old guys at the gym." I said, "Look around. We're the old guys." At the gym. We were relatively young still, but anyway, in your mind, you have the dinosaurs in the gym, and now I'm even more of a dinosaur. So I'm proudly looking forward to being the old man at this gym too.
Well, sure. Yeah, it's man. I will say that boy, there is a very different energy. And so again, I'm not by any means knocking the way anyone wants to go through and improve their fitness journey. But boy, just to kind of to deviate just slightly, because you brought up a really great point that I really think needs to be addressed. Man, you're absolutely right. Gym culture is, I think a lot of people who are on the outside, who have never experienced it, they can't quite understand it. And it can be very intimidating because it's human nature to be fearful of what we don't know, what we don't understand. So coming into the gym for the very first time can be extremely intimidating. There are and there is a small amount. There's a small amount of people who I think will go through and make fun of you, or we see these gym fail videos that I absolutely hate, where
Yeah,
people are just recording people for likes and for attention and all that sort of stuff. Whereas you could spend a little bit more time helping this person out, if they're not using the machines properly. But for the most part, again, yes, the gym is not a zero sum game in that there is someone else's experience or their success does not limit mine. It's a big table that everyone gets to sit at, and there's plenty of spots, plenty of chairs, plenty of seats, and so to reach backward and help that person, uh, I think it's something that I absolutely love. And so to see people that are encouraging of one another, I think is fantastic. I think one of the negatives that people wrongfully see is they see those people who they're posing in the mirror. And so a lot of people I think can make the snap judgments by saying, "Oh, look at this guy. He's flexing in the mirror. Look at he's so proud of himself." And 9 times out of 10, that's actually not the case
right.
because what we're doing is we're looking for those weak spots. Okay, yeah, this is all right, but oh, I need to improve this, and I need to make this a little bigger and this a little smaller, and I want to lose more weight here, and so it is a constant thing that we're trying to do is so it's self-improvement. So we're looking at ourselves with a very critical eye as opposed to peacocking and being all, "Oh, look at me, I'm so big and strong." It really doesn't work that way. And I think once people get in and they start to understand that that's what that culture is, and that people are a lot more accepting, and they want the good people want others to succeed. And that's what I always try to do whenever I'm up at my gym.
Well, you're doing it now.
That's, thank you. Yeah, I mean,
That's part of the motivation for the show to tell people it's okay, and to give them the messages that you're giving them because you're right. A lot of people are afraid, a lot of people are intimidated, a lot of people are victimized by other people who, again, want to get a laugh or a like on the internet.
and so by going through and developing that, there's there's pride that comes with it, because it's very easy to go through and you can study mathematically. You can literally see your progress. You can go, oh, okay, this week I was able to bench press this amount. This next week I was able to bench press this amount. So you can literally see the steps in your improvement. And what that's done for me is it creates this hunger where I want to have more. And so now, after being on this program for a couple of weeks, I've elevated up to 8 minutes now is what I'm
Nice.
doing for the rowing. So I'm starting that this week. So I went through and found an old video from 6 years ago. So so available here on YouTube, you go through, you can do a search, you'll find it. But so John Cena is one of my idols, professional wrestler, actor, movie star, and just a really good human being. And so he was in a video with a fellow WWE wrestler named Sheamus. Has a channel called Brave Change. So here's this guy. Sheamus is a professional athlete. He is a bodybuilder. He's a wrestler. So you think he's going to be athletic and have all the tremendous skills that he has, which he does. And then he goes around and on his channel, he does different workouts with different wrestlers and different personalities. And quite frankly, he gets his ass kicked, so it's because it's a brand new exercise for him.
Right.
And so it's humbling to see, okay, so if he's struggling and he's one of these great athletes, man, it's okay to go through and struggle and find your way through. So in this video, in going through, I had forgotten that John Cena gets ready by doing a 20-minute warm-up on the rowing machine. But what he does, so it's 5-minute blocks where it's 4 minutes at the pace that I'm pretty much doing now. But then for every 5th minute, so it's like he does the 4 minutes where he's doing just kind of like standard good warm-up pace, but then he sprints for 60 seconds. So it's pulling as hard and as fast as he can. And so he does that for 20 minutes just to get warmed up. And so it's like, holy cow. I mean, it's like, and here I am, I can get to 8 minutes, but boy, I think if I tried to do 20, I'd fall out of the seat after it was all done. But then I have to remind myself, okay, he's John Cena, I'm me. So he has his history of bodybuilding and weightlifting and is in much better shape than I am. But so again, it gives me that motivation to chase, like, hey, this is something that I can go through and try to target. And it gives me a nice goal to shoot for. As long as I stay realistic, then I think it's something that could be achievable.
I also believe in having mythic mentors, and Arnold is one of mine. As a human being, Arnold has done some questionable things, as have all human beings. But generally, he's given us a roadmap to great accomplishment, regardless of what field you set your goals in, not only with bodybuilding, but with acting and with government. And his voice is still powerfully heard and reverberates throughout the land today on certain key issues. And he's put his money where his mouth is and helped out with like voting and all sorts of things. So I find him very admirable, and I find his words very motivating. And I watch the Sword and Sandal movies, or the Peplum movies, or the Hercules films for the same reason. This was an earlier era of bodybuilding when the classic bodybuilding physique, the ancient Greek statue look, was what they were looking at. And it's much more attainable. And those films continue to reinforce to me that anybody can look like that if they apply themselves. Now we've moved beyond the human into the post-human body. But back in the 50s, the 60s, and I guess the 70s, it was still, the attainable human body, the body that was celebrated in art and sculpture.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do think that something like that, as long as you're being smart about it and you're being realistic about it. The last time that I went and talked with my doctor, so I was explaining the situations and my attempt, which is, I think it's everyone's constant attempt, is to go through and lose weight. And so I mentioned again, pro wrestling. I'm a huge fan of it. I'll watch Monday Night Raw tomorrow whenever I'm doing my cardio, so that way I get 2 for 1. But so I went through and mentioned, well, there's this guy and his name's L.A. Knight, and I really like his physique, and I'd like to develop something like he has. And she was like, oh yeah, I know who he is. Yes, but my husband watches it, so she knew. And so I do think that that's very nice to go through and to have someone to emulate, to go through and say, yeah, I'd like to have someone's physique like that, as long as you're going through and understanding that we're not always seeing those things through the proper lens. We're seeing the highlight reels as opposed to everything that's happening, and the fact that Hollywood has plugged them into a system, or the WWE has plugged them into a system, or the professional athletes that are out there. That's their job. And so as long as you keep your expectations realistic, but still it's nice to have something to strive for, to compare yourself to.
I love wrestling also. I don't watch it anymore, but I used to for many decades, I'd say for several decades. And when I had my Fringe television show, one of the things that was supposed to happen during one of the seasons was I was going to become a professional wrestler. Like I had a goal every season. One was to make a movie, so I made a movie. It was shown at a film festival, and and things like that. Or part of it was shown at a film festival, and then it was shown on cable TV. So I accomplished that. So one of my goals was to become a professional wrestler. So I had one of the managers, Dangerous Johnny Diamond, and he was my manager. And then there was a wrestler. He was a bulldog something or something bulldog. I don't remember. It's been years. And he was going to be training me. And we had a wrestling school who was willing to train me. And we were going to do this whole big story about how I was found frozen in ice. And because I was from ancient times, I wasn't like gentlemanly. I was very savage. So
Sure.
you didn't know if I was a good guy or a bad guy. If I was a heel, or if I was I forget what they call the non-heels,
Babyface.
babyface. So it
Yeah.
was going to be, and then finally I would find uh, my way, and I would become the hero that I was in long ago times. But until then, it was kind of going to be a question mark as to what I did in any particular match and why I did it. But for some reason, it never came about. Just days of scheduled shooting got canceled, and before you know it, it was like a third of the way in the season. So we had to drop it because there wasn't enough time to really pull it together. But it was almost a dream come true for me, and I'm glad that what happened happened. I got a chance to be at least peripherally a part of the inner workings. So that's something that
Sure.
happened.
That's boy. So I think it'd be easy to look back on that, and with have a tremendous amount of pride, because you're going through entertaining people, but with what I think is one of the greatest forms of entertainment,
Yes.
because there's the pageantry of it all. They're modern day gladiators. I mean, for lack of a better term, with all the theatricality that goes on with it, the athleticism, all of that. I do think it's completely silly, and I know that, and I'm aware of it, but I still love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
It's timeless entertainment. It's good versus evil. It's about betrayal. It's about redemption. It has all these mythic themes on it, and it's something that's happening live on stage. It's not part of a story. It's something that's happening in real life, even though it's imaginal, and it's phenomenally powerful. And because of the connections of our current president with wrestling, I think a lot of things that happen in Washington, if you're a wrestling fan, they take on a totally different perspective than if you're not a wrestling fan.
Which and so again, it's ironic too, because I never got into UFC, just because I felt it was almost too brutal. I didn't like the idea of guys just wailing on each other, and yet they can go through and do these incredibly miraculous things in wrestling, but everyone comes back for the next week, and it's they get hit with steel chairs and all this sort of stuff. So believable. I suspend the disbelief, and just the good guys come back, and like you said, the good guys win more often. On a long enough timeline, the good guys win. And sometimes when you look around at the world today, I think you need those levels of hope to go through and say, hey, we don't like this guy, he's the bad guy, oh, look at him, he's so snooty, I want him to get his comeuppance. And so
Mhm.
that's all you're waiting for, is for the good guy to finally win the story. So yeah, it's tale as old as time.
And back in the old days, they used to fight the same before it became a televised event all the time. They used to play out the same stories over and over again during the course of a season. So the fight took place live in auditoriums and stadiums throughout the world that other people had seen, and the outcome would be the same. So the story, it was almost a play or a theater presentation, as you had pointed out, with a theatricality, because it was the same story being played over and over again, because not everyone would see it only once, like on TV.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've never thought about that. Yeah, but if they're moving around from city to city in different territories, there's a small, yeah, there'd be a small percentage of the audience that might travel with you, maybe. But yeah, so you could basically do the same story over and over and over again. Yeah, I've never thought about that before, but that's a cool concept.
Did you ever want to be a wrestler, or do you ever try out for wrestling?
So I had a very short career with a federation that was located here locally.
Awesome.
Um, but I was the ring announcer. I only got to do a small handful of shows, unfortunately, before it all folded. And that was one of the first questions that they asked me was, do you want to be a wrestler? But this was before I had started my bodybuilding journey. And I was like, there's no way I could do it. I don't have the athleticism for it. That's God's honest truth. I am not an athlete. I'm more of like an athletic supporter. Hang on. There we go. All right. So I got my joke in. So I was
That's
the
not a
guy.
joke. That's awesome. So you were perfectly part of the phenomenon too, which is again, that's an interesting concept we could devote a whole show to, is to what extent people try to enter the realm of myth and become myths themselves. And this is like a small example, but it's real world and it's relatable.
It's so my role. I was the guy that from Plano, Texas, weighing in at 236 pounds. So I was that guy, and had a lot of fun with it. It was really cool. It was fun to see behind the curtain.
Mhm.
To have a little bit of that experience. But now it's kind of, boy, I know it's not healthy to go through and dwell on what could have and what should have been. But if I was going to go through it, like if you could rub that genie lamp and say, hey, who would you ever have dinner with, past, present, or future? And it's like, well, I'd want to talk to me. I'd want to talk to 10-year-old Ryan and say, okay, you're going to invest in Apple, you're going to invest in Google. And he's going, what's Google? Don't worry about it. But when it comes up, you invest in it. But I think that'd be the other thing that I would do is I would be to really keep a handle on your strength, keep a handle on your physical health, because being on this journey that I've been on since 2014, I think, it's it's been life changing. Yeah, or I should say it's been life improving. To go through. And so again, I'm not an athlete. I can't really play basketball. Baseball was never my thing. I did play high school football, but I was the absolute best scum offensive running back that my school had ever seen. For those who don't know, Scum O is the team that they put together to play against the first team's defense. And so what you would do is you would run the playbook of the team that you were going to play that week. So they'd study on film. Okay, so this is what they run, this offense or that offense, and so they would plug me in, and I would know how to run every play from every position, but I didn't have the athletic talent to play on the field on Friday night. So I was in charge with keeping the first team sharp. So it just and so I was part of the team. I was helping out. I was keeping that first team going, but I didn't have that raw athleticism that I needed. And so I always thought, well, just maybe I just haven't found my sport until I discovered bodybuilding. And once I discovered that was like, okay, I understand this because it's less, I'm not competing against another person. I'm competing against myself. I'm competing against the person that I was yesterday and last week and last year, and going through it and trying to constantly improve. And the other thing that I learned through doing this is that the iron does not care. The iron is a great equalizer. It does not stroke your ego. It does not tell you everything that you want to hear. It is lift it or don't. And if you don't, it's lift or die. And so to me, there's something very appealing about that cold nature of you will improve, you will do this, you will improve, or you will fail. And so to me, there's, as opposed to going against another human being, that doesn't really appeal to me. But going through and doing the bodybuilding and becoming a better person of me, that's my thing. So that's what I need to do. I just needed to find my sport, and as it turns out, bodybuilding was it.
And so you have a great story of of going on your way to find your sport, and so your legend is being built because you have a great
Uh,
but those instances that didn't quite turn out the way you liked were part of your path to bodybuilding, and they're exciting. Each one is worthy of more than one tale. So you have like a great origin story till you reached your goal, and now you've been on your path for over a decade. So that's pretty amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's been, it's honestly, it's probably one of the most difficult things that I've ever done in my life. But it is also the most rewarding. And I think I'm going to continue to reap those benefits for years to come, just because of the way I move. I don't feel like a 50-year-old, and I don't think I look like your average 50-year-old. I still want to go through. There's still improvements that I want to make. There's still areas that I want smaller, and some areas that I want more defined. But that's where it's just the constant chase to go through and do those improvements. But I think it's one of those things. It's improved me. The way I always like to describe it is, for people, if this is your first show, I always talk about my four pillars, and the four pillars that you go through and you develop in the gym. It's, yes, it is the physical, but it's the intellectual. Whenever you go through and you're studying which workouts I should do and why. But then there's also the social aspect, and then there's the emotional aspect, and the emotional might be the most important. I think because of the hard work that I put in, it instills with me a sense of confidence. It's not arrogance. It's not, it's not, being bragging about, how much weight I can lift. It's more along the lines of just trying to go through and find that constant zone of happiness from lifting the weights and getting the work done and doing that self-improvement.
I can understand that totally. As you know, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And one of the things that gave me the greatest hope was you could use weight training to minimize the effects of Parkinson's. And not only that, which gave me a lot of hope, but the more you exercise, so rather than just exercising once a day or aiming for once a day, now I aim for 4 or 5 times a day. And so I get to work out more, and I can justify it totally because it's helping me manage my Parkinson's disease. So that was like a positive of the diagnosis. And I have a story. I don't know if did I share with you my Charles Atlas story?
No, but please do. Or maybe you have, but still, it's probably worth repeating. So
Uh,
please.
One of the things that always guided me was the Charles Atlas story. That he was Angelo Siciliano. He came here, became Charles Atlas, and it's the whole bully on the beach tale. And in just 7 days, I can make you a man, and just the whole thing. And when I was young, I think my father had ordered the Atlas course, so I had access to it. So I used to do the exercises. And my father also used to lift weights. So whenever he wasn't around, I'd sneak his weights into my room and exercise with the weights as much as I could. But as an adult, I worked with and for the Charles Atlas Company. And my desk at the office was, I forget whether it was a chair or the desk, but one of them belonged to Charles Atlas himself. The other one belonged to Roman, his partner. So whenever I was in the office, which wasn't very often, but I had the desk of these two people that made this company. And they had all sorts of really cool things in the office, like they had a piece of a metal bar that Charles Atlas had bent, and they had his leopard shorts, and they had all sorts of things in
Right.
glass cases. And I'm still friends with them. We don't get together as often as we once did, but I spoke with them like within the past couple of weeks. We spoke on the phone. So that was always something, that I can't talk too much about it because I signed NDAs, but
Sure.
um, that was something I was really proud of, because an idea inside the comic book that guided me throughout my young life and influenced my early days of trying to build a body. Now all of a sudden I became part of the path of this company, and help move it a little bit in a particular direction. And that's something that was very fulfilling. And even though, like the wrestling path, nothing ever came of it beyond what little I did, still I did something with it. So that too is becoming part of that story, and it's something that motivates me to this day. And even though I no longer do the exercises very often, every now and then, if I've taken a long time off for whatever reason, I'll use the exercises to get back into, the point where I'm ready to deal with the weights or resistance of some kind, or greater resistance of some kind, really.
Sure. And well, and so again, to bring up Schwarzenegger again, yeah, Arnold talked about how, so every time that he did a Terminator movie, he would go through and he would want to get back into what he called Terminator shape. And sometimes so the first climb up the mountain is always going to be the hardest. And then the second time that you climb up that mountain, it's still going to be difficult, but it's not going to be as hard because the body remembers. It's again, going back to the concept of muscle memory. The body's going to remember what it is it wants you to do. And that's one of the things that I found tremendously fascinating, is to find a brand new exercise that I've never done before, and then to go through and so start with a very low weight, because I'm physically teaching my body, hey, this is what I want you to do. And then so it'll take a little bit, but once my body starts to figure out, oh, okay, yeah, we're starting to get this now, we understand how this is, and then all of a sudden you'll start seeing those leaps where you'll start to really start packing on the amount of weight that you're lifting, because your body is understanding it more. So to kind of bring it back to the original part of the conversation, this is where, yeah, that initial burst when it comes to the rowing, I mean, I had messed with it a little bit, and it wore me out years ago that I tried to do, and I was just like, man, I can't do this, and so I didn't want to try to jump back into that. But with this, for whatever reason, I said, let's give this another shot. Let's try it again, and let's see if we can make this work. And it's very possible. I'd have to go through and like dig into my database, but it's possible that I could have seen John Cena 6 years ago from that video rowing for 20 minutes. I tried it, and after 3 minutes, I was completely gassed and said, man, I can't do this, because I wasn't approaching it from the right way. And so now by going through, and so the idea is, where I kind of came up with the idea to do this right now. So for those that don't know, I am an author, and I'm working on my next book. And so I'm in the middle of what I call the sprint, which is where I'm trying to race to get everything done, so I can get this next book ready for publishing. And so I found a video on YouTube from a fellow author. I believe her name is Abby Emmons. And on Abby's channel, she has these music videos, for lack of a better term. And so what she does is, again, so she has it set up, and say it's a lot of ambiance. It's a lot of, like, so say it's Viking music, but then she'll go through and she'll add in the sound of waves and the sounds of the ship, the hull creaking and the sails billowing. But more importantly, it has a countdown timer running on it. And so what you're going to do is so she calls it the sprint. So you're going to sprint for 25 minutes, and then you're going to take a break for 5. And so this is typically done like a 2-hour block. So if you started with, so you start with 5 minutes, say, worth of chores, then you're going to sprint for 25 minutes. And for 5 minutes, you're going to get up, you're going to take a break. You're going to fold your laundry. You're going to clean part of your bathroom. So if you're doing 5 of these 5-minute sessions over the course of these 2 hours, you can actually get quite a bit done. But the difference is that whenever I was working, I was constantly looking over at the clock, because I had it in a picture-in-picture. So I'd have my script up in one section of the monitor, and then to have the picture-in-picture going. And suddenly, instead of like, hey, I have to get this many pages done today, or I have to get this much done, it's more along the lines of, what can I squeeze into these to this time frame because the
Mhm.
clock is ticking. And so when you look over and see, oh man, I've only got 10 minutes left, I've really got to get in here and get this stuff done. And so the mentality kind of switched. And so a lot of times I go through and I take these lessons from the gym and I incorporate them into real life. But
Right.
instead, with this time around, I incorporated something from real life and I brought it into the gym. And so what I told myself was 5 minutes. You can do anything for 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking you to do. Sometimes I have to think about baseball, but I can last for 5 minutes. So the idea was I'm going to go through and I'm going to use music to help me because music is a tremendous performance enhancing drug that is completely legal. So what I would do, I would go through and I'd choose one song and then I'd let the algorithm take over. And typically, I mean, a song, it's anywhere lasting from 3 to 4 minutes. And if you get a really good banger that you can row to, okay, now you're going. And then the fun part is, okay, now let the algorithm take over and let that be the second song. I'm gonna let that choose for me. And if you're choosing something that's heavy metal, it's going to come along and choose another heavy metal song after the back of that. So now instead of going through, so if I come through and I tell you, all right, so I'm doing 7 minutes. I'm doing 7 minutes for see, I should have wrote this down because okay, so
I'm
I'm
following you.
doing
You're making sense.
okay, so I'm doing 7 minutes at 30 reps, give or take. It's probably technically a little bit more than that, but let's call it. So in 7 minutes, you're going to do 210 reps on this rowing machine. And if I came along and sat you down and said, you're going to do 200 of these, you'd be like, get out of here, man. I can't do 200 of these. Don't think of it like that. You're doing it for 5 minutes. Okay, so 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever it is that you're going to do. So when you change that mentality and you say, I'm not lifting this for 210 times, I'm just going to do this for 7 minutes. And so again, if I'm doing the pronated grip and I'm starting to gas out, hey, instead of stopping, let's just switch and we'll do that. So we'll switch from the pronated grip to the supinated grip. And so it's going to target the muscles a little bit differently. So then I'm going through, and if I can go through and I can do that, then you start to get to those break points where it's like, oh, okay, the song's over. Now we just got to get halfway through this next song. And suddenly your mind kind of starts to change where it's just like, okay, we've done 5 minutes. We've only got 2 more to go. So yes, we can do anything for 2 minutes. And then once you kind of start to get to the end, that's where you can go through and you can start counting the reps. So you're like, man, okay, in this last 30 seconds, I got to do 15, and then you can start counting it down until you get to the end. So by going through and making those changes, just by going through it and changing your mentality of how you're going to go through and approach this thing, it changes the whole aspect of the exercise. And then suddenly, so as you start to develop and you start to get more comfortable in this, you start to get more and more practice in, then it goes through and it really starts changing. And so one of the things that I really noticed with this is that, okay, so really, really simply, so you have your muscle and you have your skin. And in between is a layer of subcutaneous fat. I know that it's just a fancy way of saying it's under your skin, is what subcutaneous is. And so if you think about it like a sweater, so if you go through and the thinner that you can make that sweater, the more fat that you can drop off, the thinner that sweater is going to become. And then the muscles are going to become more pronounced. So in this short time, in this month that I've been going through and doing this, I'm starting to see, I mean, these are like legit changes in my forearms. And so like the forearms, the rowing does target the forearms, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh no, the muscle was kind of already there to begin with, but the sweater is now getting thinner. And so by going through and doing this, I'm seeing a tremendous amount of change in a pretty short amount of time. But so by going through and doing this, so again, it's high intensity and you can make it as high intensity as you want to. You can go a little bit easier and it then can become a little bit of a meditative thing because that constant rowing back and forth, it can go through kind of help you calm down, help you de-stress. It could also, you could use this, you could use it as a way to jumpstart your exercise, and you could also use it as a way to kind of cool down at the end. But by going through and doing this, so you find that repetitive rhythm, you're doing it over and over again. Again, it's low impact. I know you've said in the past that balance has been an issue for you, but if you're sitting down the whole time and being able to do these rows, and again, if you can hit 86% of your muscles with
Mhm.
a single exercise, to me it really seems like a no-brainer. So again, I want everyone's journey to be a little bit shorter than mine. I want it, it's not going to be easy, but I want it to be easier. So if that's the case, if you're looking for something that you can go through to really jumpstart your program, man, I'm pretty convinced that rowing might be one of the best things I've added into my workout.
Thank you. And as soon as I'm balanced enough and I hook up with the right gym, I am going to apply that wisdom that you've shared with me. And I will report what happened. I have a life lesson too to report.
Sure.
And I'm applying now with the Parkinson's and my working out. I learned in life that you don't need to know how to do something to do it. Just decide you're going to do it and declare it and move forward. So, like for instance, to get my television show, I had no idea how I get a television show. I had nothing to do with television ever, but I wanted a television show. So of course I shared my dream with people, and they tried to shoot it down. Oh, you didn't go to journalism school. You never went to acting school. You know, how are you going to get a television show? But I wouldn't believe them. So I just decided, what can I do today to get me a television show? So the first thing I did was I got a notebook and I wrote down what I would do if I had a television show. Like what would it be about? What type of guests? Who specifically would I have as a guest? What would we talk about and things like that? And I just did that, and nothing happened for a long time. I learned a lot about TV shows and so forth, but no opportunities came in, and I really had nothing to offer, like someplace to be a volunteer or to get a job or something. And the types of jobs that I would be able to get wouldn't be enough to sustain me financially. So anyway, I just kept doing what I was doing. Then one day I got a call from somebody who'd read an article I'd written and it was published in some local publication about UFOs, and they wanted to interview me on a show. So I said, okay. So we made the appointment. I went downtown New York to the building, and she was in a tizzy. She was very upset because her co-host had been scarfed up by a network television show. So now she didn't have a co-host. So she was very upset, and she asked me if I knew how to be a co-host, or if I, so I didn't know how to be a co-host, but I thought I could do it if somebody showed me how. So I said, I think I could do it. And so there you go. I was a co-host on a cable television show, which had been spoofed on Saturday Night Live, not much previously. So I started there, and then I was on TV, and I was on TV as a co-host. Then the opportunity came up to like be a guest host on some other shows. Like somebody had a show, their guest didn't show up or something, they needed somebody quickly, and I would do it. I would go on the show and I talk about all sorts of different things, and people realized I'm reliable as a guest host, so or a guest on a show. So I wound up on a lot of shows. Then the station that I was on, it was a UHF station, was being acquired by a bigger one. So they were calling people in and telling them whether their shows would be over or would continue. So I didn't really have a show, so I don't understand why they wanted to talk to me. So I went because they set up an appointment with me, and they told me they liked what I'd done on all these shows that I was on, and if they gave me a show, what would I do with it? Now remember that notebook where I wrote down all the ideas, and for a
Sure.
long period of time, nothing happened with the ideas, but I wrote them and I thought about them, and so I pitched what I had ideally thought about all that time, and they loved it. So boom, I had a TV show. It took a year and a half and I didn't know what I was doing, but I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I took advantage of opportunities that came my way that normally I might have said no to, or, not pursued. So whatever door opened, I tried to see what I could learn there and what I could do there. And in a year and a half, when my wife and I first got married, we decided we wanted a house. Neither of us lived the type of life that led to home ownership, but we decided we wanted a house. So it took a year and a half or so, but we bought a house. So I learned in life to just know what you want and just do what you can do and think about what you might need and then just look for opportunities. Like today, you said a lot of things that are helping me on my journey. So I'm grateful to you and I thank you very much. But that's the whole technique. So I'm going to apply what you've said and I'm going to think about a lot of the experiences that you shared, and they'll help move me along. And I want a classic bodybuilding physique. You know, I've wanted that my whole life. I've had it a few times. I want it in my last days on this planet. So I want to end my sojourn here with a classic bodybuilder's physique, the physique that was in ancient statues, because that's always represented the ideal to me. So thank you for bringing me a little bit closer to that. And hopefully what I shared can bring somebody else a little closer to whatever they desire.
I hope so as well. And just to piggyback on what you're talking about there, I think there's an absolutely fantastic monologue in the Disney film Ratatouille that talks about the defense of the new and how the critics love to go through and tear things down because it's fun to write and it's fun to read, but we need the support of the new. And so in the movie, the idea is Gustav, this guy who had the restaurant, used to say that anyone can cook, but the better thing is that a good cook can come from anywhere. And it's that way, I think, with any sort of art. I did not go to school to learn how to write comic books. I read comic books. I read thousands upon thousands of comic books, and that's how I learned how to do it. Quentin Tarantino said he didn't go to film school, he studied film. So these people, they can come from anywhere. And so I'm guessing with a little bit of our age difference, Kennedy was probably a big influence in your life. And here's John F. Kennedy saying, we're going to go to the moon. How are we going to do that? I don't know, but I'm saying that we're going to do it. Now you guys figure it out. But
Right.
yeah, but he set the goal. He set the goal and said, this is what I want to do. Now we're going. And so, yes, I do think there's a tremendous amount of wisdom in what you just said. And so you can go to school to study how to be a bodybuilder, but at the end of the day, you got to get in there and you got to do it. And
Right.
you'll figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And then once you go through and you start adjusting that program and you start improving, so yes, anyone can do it. And so how close are we on time?
I think we have another 5 minutes, but I can
Okay.
extend it a little
So,
longer.
so what I will say is that if you decide to go on your journey, post it, not in a bragging way, not in any sort of fashion like that. But one, if you go through and you talk about it, what it does is it grants other people permission to follow in your shoes. There's the great story, the 1950s. I want to say it's 1954. I'm not 100% positive on that. But in 1954, Roger Bannister was the first person to ever break the 4 minute mile because they said, can't be done physically. It's impossible. He goes through and breaks it. And then then it started falling, like more and more people started breaking it, more and more people. And now it's like over 20,000 people since that time has broken the 4 minute mile barrier and done it faster than Roger Bannister did. And the difference is that they believed that they could do it. So, hey, if this guy can do it, I can do it. And so by going through, the quote is, you're playing small does not serve the world.
Right.
When you go through and you let your light shine, it grants other people the right to shine as well. So yes, by all means, share your journey, man, because you don't know who you're impacting. You don't know how your essence is radiating out into the world and granting other people permission to go through and chase their own dreams. And so if me on here talking with you goes through and inspires someone to say, hey, I think I want to try this gym thing, we don't know how that's going to radiate out for improvements for everybody. But yes, by all means, please. I mean, share your story, share your journey. It's absolutely fantastic and grants other people the right to go through and try it as well.
And that's a good place to end today's conversation. But I have a bonus minute or two
Okay.
that I'll react to what Ryan said. Um, you've also helped me as an inspiration with my writing. I've always written since I was very young, and it was published in like institutional periodicals or local media, whether magazines or newspapers or online zines and things like that. But I never really went beyond that. People wrote about me in books because of the things that I had done in my career. So as a professional, I wound up in a few books, people talking about my methods and things like that in the human services and workforce development. But I hadn't really written anything. And then you had said some things when I interviewed you, and you're my favorite graphic novelist in mythical matter. So I've said that many times and I mean it. So your words had a lot of weight. And then Nicholas Dyack and Michelle Brittany, who are also hosts on the channel, they said a few things, that one of them being, I should try writing for anthologies. So I tried writing for anthologies, and before you know it, it was published in over 20 paranormal anthologies. And now my latest anthology is being published by Llewellyn Publications, which is a worldwide publisher. It's a really big publisher.
Cool.
The other ones were from independent publishers that are known in the subculture, paranormal exploration, but not by the man in the street. But I think everybody's heard of Llewellyn worldwide. So that was a journey that took a few years, and also fulfilled a childhood dream, just like with the Charles Atlas and wanting to be like, Steve Reeves and Charles Atlas and Reg Park and things like that. I also wanted to be one of those guys that investigated the paranormal and wrote articles that went into books that had lurid covers and weird titles. And from these smaller publishers, my writings wound up in those books. And now I was one of those guys that I've always wanted to be like. And I created shows where I talk to these guys often. And we're not only sharing what each of us are doing in our own way, but we're also honoring people like Timothy Beckley, Brad Steiger, Hans Holzer, and some of the other pioneers of this type of writing. So I became what I really always wanted to be. So even if I don't get any further in that dream, I've attained that dream. So it's very fulfilling. And again, I didn't know how I would do that. But I wound up there nonetheless. So listen to what people say and listen to what people share, especially if these people have your good in mind. And just basically give some weight to the words and try it out as much as you feel comfortable trying it out. You never know where it can take you. So again, thank you for everything, Ryan.
Oh, but man, my pleasure. I think that's absolutely fantastic, man. I'm proud of you for those accomplishments. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you. I have advice from the best.
Well, man, I don't think I can top anything with that. I'd say, yeah, good spot to end.
So we'll do the end then. How can people find you and hook into all the wonderful things that you're doing?
Well, man, so how do I feel about it? Welcome back to Facebook. You may have been the smartest one out of all of us to dip out for just a little bit. We'll see. But no, how you promote me on Facebook is probably the absolute best way that people can get in touch with me. I will say this though, man, weird. I've been getting a lot of spam lately from people who want to go through and promote my books. And then there was one spammer who got a hold of me and it said, hey, I really liked your book. I really thought that this part was interesting when you, and then there were brackets and it said list interesting part here. So it's like, you didn't even have the time to go through and like customize something to try to get my bank account information. Come on, man, work better. But so I have been getting a lot of spam lately. I did get connected with an author, and I had to go through and do like a, "Are you sure you're a human being?" You know, but
Uh-huh.
she was, and so now we've been exchanging about the process that we go through in writing. So if people do want to reach out and contact me, please by all means mention Hercules first. That way I know where you're coming from, and so that way like, oh, okay, yeah, you're not a spam bot, and you're not looking for my social security number or my credit card number in the course of the conversation. But yeah, how you find me on so how you promote me on Facebook, absolutely best way. And then if you want to read about the books that Hercules talked about as far as the fantasy, Amazon.com is the absolute best way. You can go through, do a search for Ryan Foley. You'll probably find my author page pretty quickly. And fingers crossed, when I talk to you in September, I might have the next book published. We'll see.
Oh,
Hopefully
awesome.
so.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And when you're free, I'd like to focus on your work again, like do a show just on your work. And
Yeah.
also, if we're doing a lot more shows on comic books now, if you're free and interested in participating in those, there's an open door, no pressure. I know you're a busy guy, and I'm appreciative of whatever time you give us, but that's there if you're interested in it.
Yeah. Always fun. Always fun to talk to you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Have a wonderful evening, and I appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate talking to you tonight.
Be well.